You'll ruin his life, Emily. Mark deserves better than you. That's what his mother, Linda, told me on the day I brought him lunch to the hospital after a long shift. She didn't even look me in the eye, just handed me his things and shut the door behind her. I stood in the hallway holding the brown paper bag, still warm from the grilled cheese I made with his favorite hot sauce. My hands were trembling, but I didn't say a word. I didn't knock again. I just walked away, slow and stunned. Mark didn't even know I had come. I found out later that Linda told him I canceled last minute. Said I was too busy to show up for him. It wasn't the first time she tried to keep me away. But that day, something in me cracked. Not because of what she said, but because a part of me believed her. That maybe I wasn't good enough. That maybe loving him wasn't enough. I went home and cried into the same hands that had bandaged his wounds, paid his bills, held his dreams. And I whispered to myself, maybe she's right. Mark and I met during our final year of college. He was this quiet, kind soul with a messy notebook full of song lyrics and big dreams about becoming a music therapist. I was the practical one, working 2 jobs, managing a full course load, and still finding time to proofread his essays and cook us cheap but filling meals. We didn't come from the same world. Mark's family, especially his mother, Linda, came from money. Not billionaires, but we don't shop clearance money. She drove a Lexus, wore pearl earrings to brunch, and hosted charity galas for causes she barely remembered the names of. I, on the other hand, grew up folding laundry at the laundromat my mom cleaned at night. I learned to say thank you with actions, not just words. And maybe that's why Linda never saw me as enough. I wasn't polished. I wasn't raised to schmooze or impress. I was just real. From the beginning, she made her disapproval loud in small, sharp ways. At dinners, she'd pour wine for everyone but me. During holidays, she'd always forget my name on the place cards. And once, when Mark and I brought up moving in together, she said in front of him, "Just make sure you don't become her next project. She fixes things, not people." Mark would brush it off, saying, "She'll come around." But she never did. I spent 3 years showing up, taking care of Mark when he had his breakdown after losing his internship, driving him to his therapy appointments, encouraging him to start his private practice. I loved him deeply.
Genuinely.
Patiently. But no matter how much I gave, no matter how hard I tried, I always felt like I was auditioning for a role I was never going to get. Like I was background noise in his life story. And through it all, Linda kept smiling that tight, polished smile, waiting for me to slip, to give her a reason to say, "See? I told you so." It all came to a head the night of Mark's graduation from his master's program. He was being honored for his research on music therapy in trauma recovery. I had helped him edit every page of that thesis, sat through his practice presentations, even found the suit he wore that night, on clearance, of course. I arrived early, saved seats for his family, and waited. But when they showed up, Linda walked right past me like I wasn't even there. During the ceremony, she clapped politely. But when it was over, she pulled Mark aside before I could get to him. I watched them talk from a distance, her voice low, his shoulders tense. When I finally approached, Mark wouldn't meet my eyes. Linda stepped in instead. She looked me dead in the face and said, "Emily, it's best if you leave now. You've done enough." She didn't mean it as thanks. She meant it as final. Mark didn't say a word. He just stood there. So I left. I walked out of that auditorium with my heart in pieces, not because of what she said, but because he let her. No fight. No protest. Just silence. That night, I didn't text him. I didn't call. I just sat on my bed, staring at the wall. And I realized something. I'd become so used to being quiet for his sake. I'd forgotten what it sounded like when I spoke up for myself. The next morning, I deleted his number. Not in anger, in clarity. I didn't block him, didn't craft a long message explaining my pain. I just stepped back. Quietly. Intentionally. I stopped checking his socials. Stopped sending him meal prep tips and job postings. I canceled the auto payment I'd been covering on his therapy copay, something he never even knew I was paying. No announcement. No drama. Just distance. At work, I pour myself into a new project. I picked up morning yoga again. I even started baking, something I hadn't done in years. My life didn't become perfect overnight, but for the first time it was mine. The silence wasn't punishment. It was peace. People think withdrawal means defeat. But in truth, it was my first real act of power. I wasn't begging to be chosen anymore. I was choosing myself. I didn't unfollow Mark. I just stopped watching. And with each day that passed without a message or a call from him, I felt lighter. No more waiting to be loved right. No more convincing someone or his mother that I was worthy. And in that stillness, I realized I was never the problem. I was the proof that real love isn't always pretty or polished, but it's real. And that's what scared her. For the first time, my silence wasn't fear. It was freedom. It was months later when I got a message from someone I didn't know, Ava Johnson. The name rang a bell, but I couldn't place it right away. Her message read, "Hi Emily, I know this is out of the blue, but I wanted to say thank you. You probably don't remember me, but I remember you. You were the one who sat with me at the hospital when my mom had a stroke last year. You brought me water. You prayed with me. You didn't even know me." I blinked at the screen, stunned. She continued, "I saw a post about you from someone in Mark's family. Not kind, not fair. I just wanted to say, don't let them twist your light. You saved me in a moment when I didn't know how to breathe. I don't care what they say, you are gold." And then it clicked. Ava was Mark's cousin, Linda's niece. We had crossed paths once when Linda had rushed to the hospital but left Ava alone in the waiting room. I'd stayed with her all night. I never thought anything of it. Until now. Ava had seen the posts, subtle jabs, passive-aggressive digs. Linda had painted me as the manipulative girlfriend, someone who used Mark's kindness and needed too much. But Ava knew better. She'd seen who I really was, in a moment that had nothing to do with Mark. I didn't respond right away. I just sat there, holding the phone like it was something sacred. That single message unraveled the entire narrative they'd built around me. I didn't need to defend myself. The truth was already speaking, through someone who mattered far more than their opinions ever did. It started with a random call from an unknown number. I let it ring. Then came the email from Linda. Subject line, "Let's clear the air." She wrote, "Emily, I think things got a little out of hand. There's been a lot of miscommunication. Maybe we could all sit down and reset. Mark still cares about you, he's just been under pressure." No apology. No acknowledgement. Just control. A few days later, I got another message, this time from Claire, Mark's sister. "Hey, can you talk to Ava?" That post she made Mom really upset. This is family stuff. It doesn't need to be out in the open. There it was. The truth behind their sudden concern. It wasn't about healing, it was about image. Ava's subtle but honest post had shaken them. People were asking questions. Linda's version of the story was unraveling. And now they needed me to smooth it over. I didn't reply. They weren't sorry I'd been hurt. They were sorry they'd been exposed. I wasn't falling for it. Not this time. Their reach was frantic now, not from love, but from panic. I could feel it, the shift in power. The girl they once dismissed now held the narrative they couldn't control. And I had no intention of giving it back. A week later, I checked my mailbox and found a cream-colored envelope with delicate handwriting. Inside was a handwritten letter from Ava. It read, "Dear Emily, I wanted to write this, not just send another message. Some things deserve ink and paper. I've never forgotten that night at the hospital. You didn't even know my name, but you sat beside me while my world fell apart. You held my hand and told me to breathe. You missed your shift the next day to stay with a stranger. That moment stayed with me. I used to believe kindness was always loud, but yours was quiet, steady, real. So when I saw what they were saying about you, when I heard the way they rewrote your story, I couldn't stay silent. You didn't just save my mother's life. You saved me from drowning in that waiting room. I know you didn't do it to be remembered, but I remember. And I want you to know something. You are not hard to love. You are just too honest for people who live in denial. Please never dim your light to make others comfortable. Love. Ava**. Tears slipped down my cheeks before I could stop them. That letter broke something open in me. Not in a painful way, but like a soft cracking of armor I didn't know I was still wearing. I sat with it, reread it, and held it to my chest. All those years I tried to prove myself to Linda, to Mark's family, to people who were never going to see me, and here was Ava, someone I never asked anything from, offering me something I hadn't received in a long time. Being truly seen. Not for what I gave. Not for how well I fit in. But simply for being who I was, heart first. And in that moment, something inside me whispered, "You were never the problem." The knock came on a quiet Sunday afternoon. I wasn't expecting anyone. I peeked through the peephole. It was Linda. She stood there holding a pie, her face wearing that carefully curated smile that had fooled so many over the years. The same smile she used when telling me I wasn't enough. I opened the door, but didn't step aside. "Hi, Emily," she said, like nothing had ever happened. "Thought I'd drop by. Maybe we could talk. I brought your favorite." Her voice was light, casual, as if a pie could rewrite history. I looked at her, really looked, and I realized I felt nothing. No anger. No ache. No need to explain. I simply said, "No, Linda, I'm not doing this anymore." Her smile faltered. "Emily, come on. Let's not make this bigger than it is." I shook my head gently. "It's already as big as it needs to be. Take care of yourself." And I closed the door. Softly. Not in spite. Just in peace. No yelling. No breakdown. No dramatic exit. Just a calm, final line drawn in the sand. I turned away from the door and breathed in, deeply, fully, for the first time in years. Not because I'd won, but because I'd finally stopped needing to be chosen by people who never saw my worth to begin with. Looking back now, I don't regret walking away. I used to think love meant proving yourself, bending, pleasing, shrinking until there was barely anything left of you. But I've learned something. Real love doesn't require you to disappear. And sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is to stop knocking on doors that were never meant to open for you. To anyone watching who's ever been called too much, too emotional, not enough, I see you. You are not the problem. You are not hard to love. You are simply too real for people who hide behind masks. And if you're waiting for an apology from someone who blamed you for their son's unhappiness, let this be a reminder. You don't need their permission to thrive. Sometimes the best "I told you so" is your peace, your healing, and the way you rise without ever needing to look back.